hopeful. And I had planned to read today from my most recent book, I Quit Everything, which we are selling here today. But somehow just the events of the weekend inspired me to want to read something new that felt a little bit more of this moment. So I chose this reading really last minute. And what it is, it's going to be an excerpt from an essay that I actually recently had accepted by the Indiana Review, which I'm really excited about. And it's on, thank you, and it's on the subject of my next book. The subject of my next book is Angela DeAngelis, who you'll hear all about in just a moment. She was a member of the Symbionese Liberation Army. So the third book that I'm working on about Angela is a novel tentatively titled Daughter Universe, which will also mean something to you after my reading. And it just seems at first glance, I think, like a bit of a departure from my first two books, which are both memoirs. The first book, as Molly said, is about teaching my kid how to cook. It's really about how food and music and family have intertwined in all these different ways throughout my life. And my more recent book, I Quit Everything, is about my relationship to addiction and to intoxication and frankly to middle age, to getting older. But I think that all of my work though shares a through line of self-inquiry, of just like trying to make some sense of the jumble of my life, of the paths that I've taken and not taken, just trying to find patterns, trying to find a sense of self and a sense of cohesion, and hopefully also to inspire readers to be moved to a similar spirit of self-inquiry. So I'm going to read about half of my essay, which is called Turn Around. But rather than just reading the first half of it, I want to read all the way through to the end. So I just pulled a lot of chunks out of the essay. So we'll have some leaps to make. In a couple of instances, I'll pause and just very briefly give a synopsis of what I'm skipping. But mostly I'll just skip some parts and go on to the next. And I trust us all to make these leaps together. This is so new. In fact, I'm still working on final edits with the editor at Indiana Review, so I feel like all of you are part of the writing process for this. This is the first time I've shared this work. This is the first time I've read any of this aloud to anybody. So it's a special moment in what, like I said, has been a very special weekend. So thank you for being here. And here I go. I watched her die on national television. I was in Bloomington, Indiana, deep into a rerun of my favorite show, The $6 Million Man, about a handsome astronaut who, after a near-death accident, was rebuilt by the government, giving him superhuman powers of speed, vision, and strength. I was 6 years old. My parents had recently divorced, and I lived with my brother, our mother, and her volatile boyfriend, a drug dealer who would soon serve time in state prison. I wasn't growing up safe, exactly, but I was growing up conscious. Mom and Dad, members of the Communist Party, had been deeply committed to the civil rights movement and remained politically active, he as a community organizer, she as a peace and labor activist. We picketed at a Kroger grocery store, handing out literature about the brutal treatment of California grape pickers. I assumed that everyone we approached would do what we asked. Don't buy the grapes, don't buy the wine, not until the bosses do right. I felt tangible warmth in my chest when people stopped, talked to us, promised to honor the boycott. A few even thanked us for being there, but most just walked by, avoiding eye contact, which made me shaky and shy, and some were openly mean. If I want some wine, I'll buy some wine, a lady snapped. I cried as if slapped. The $6 Million Man promised a better future, one where what was broken, a family, a body, a country, a movement for peace, justice, and equality, could be not only mended, but built anew. The news followed. I saw the humble Los Angeles house swallowed by flames, a chaotic jumble of neighbors, police, and reporters scattering across the screen, the pop of shots and explosives sounding fake and hollow. The Symbionese Liberation Army, the group that had kidnapped Patty Hearst, lost their epic battle against 400 Los Angeles police officers and FBI agents. 6 bodies were pulled from the house. Most were quickly identified. One was not. Was it Patty, wealthy heiress to the Hearst media empire? Her story had captivated the world. First, the brazen kidnapping by the SLA, then the bizarre conversion. She joined the group, changed her name to Tanya, and robbed a bank. Tanya attained heroic status in the counterculture. An image of her wielding a machine gun and wearing a beret became a wildly popular poster, papering the walls of dorm rooms around the world. Everyone wondered, that one unidentified body, was that her? It was not. 3 days after the shootout, the body was identified from teeth and ash. Angela DeAngelis, nickname Angel. The Bloomington Herald Telephone covered the Hearst kidnapping and the SLA shootout very closely. 3 members of the group had lived in Bloomington, like me, had graduated from Indiana University, like I would someday. Her sorority sister, Jane Pauley, remembers Angel as a demi-goddess, a glowing and confident brunette who turned every head, someone she imagined living a life of poetic intrigue. They played together in the Kappa Pickers, a hillbilly jug band, and Pauley can still recite the lyrics to The Sea, a song Angel wrote. I talk to the sea, it goes. It answers me. Berna Rausch described the song as Rod McEwenish. Berna and Angel performed together in Ibsen's Hedda Gabler, which is how Berna's son Jonathan Rauch, author of the free speech classic Kindly Inquisitors, knew her. John was 12 when Angela taught him how to apply stage makeup. They transformed their faces, cracked each other up, rolled on the floor laughing. Dale Sophia of the cult band MX80 played at her wedding reception on an Indiana farm. Guests skinny dipped in the lake, some of them tripping on LSD. And Kevin Kline remembers her. They dated at IU, ran an experimental theater group, performed together at the university's summer theater in the summer of 1969. A few years out of college, Kevin asked an old friend, "What's Angela up to?" "Oh," said the friend, "didn't you hear? Angela kidnapped Patty Hearst." 33 years after Angela was killed, I was flipping through a photo essay on Bloomington, a gift from my mother-in-law, when I saw her again. I lived in Nottingham in the UK in a rented cottage full of someone else's white leather furniture. We'd moved because my husband Jake got a job. Our 2 young sons acclimated overnight, but it was taking me longer. Nobody there had known me as a child, and nobody brought casseroles to new neighbors. In Indiana, even communists brought casseroles. I was lost and heartsick, and in the photos of that book, I found the familiarity and comfort that I craved. The limestone quarries I swam in as a truant teen, the wooded IU campus glowing on an autumn day where my feet had crunched the leaves as I breathed alone. The Von Lee, a downtown movie house where I'd seen Star Wars in 1977, leaping to my feet with Dad and the entire audience when the dark side was defeated. The limestone bears that guarded the public library, worn smooth in part by my own sons, who could never resist climbing them, sliding down to the pavement again and again, always landing soft and safe. And then one photo, one face, halted my nostalgic flipping. Who is that? A beautiful young woman passes a beautiful young man. He looks back at her over his shoulder. She wears a dreamy little smile, love, and is late 60s stylish in a pea coat with wide lapels, short skirt, and a fringed purse. She could be the star of a marketing campaign, the ideal co-ed, cheerful and bright. He looks like a star too. Shaggy hair, snug leather jacket, chiseled leading man features. They're on the IU campus in front of Maxwell Hall, an ornate 19th century building made of Indiana limestone. A street sign stands between them, compositionally splitting the photo. It says, "Turn around." And then I read the caption. Gary Atwood turns around to look at Angela DeAngelis on campus in late 1969. The couple later married, and Angela became a member of the Symbionese Liberation Army. My neck hairs prickled. My face went hot. Was this Deja vu? Destiny? I ran to Jake, book in hand. Look, I said, look at this. He was from Bloomington too. He paused, nodded. Oh yes, he said, I remember that. So then the following long section that I'm going to skip is, for one thing, a big long love letter to the Indiana University Memorial Union, and then also a revelation that this very photo that I saw in this coffee table book had hung in the Union for years and years and years, which was my teenage hangout. I'd seen this photo a lot of times, and I conclude that Angela was there right along, all along. She was one of the gang. In this section, I also write a little bit about some of my youthful political aspirations as a young radical. Okay. Patricia Hearst was the star of the SLA story. Much less was published about other members of the group. I found only one national article written about Angela, a feature in the New York Times by Michael Wolff, who would later publish the best-selling Trump White House tell-all, Fire and Fury. Wolff grew up near Angela in New Jersey, knew her as a teenage queen, charismatic, and popular. The piece, titled Cheerleader for a Revolution, was his first major byline. I never had a real job after that, he told me. Wolff presents the piece as investigation. How did his pretty New Jersey neighbor become a violent revolutionary? But his thesis is no more complex than that insulting headline, Cheerleader for a Revolution. It wasn't a leap for Angela, he argues, from conforming, people-pleasing cheerleader to armed vanguard soldier. If you learn the moves and the slogans, he quotes a friend of Angela's, you're a cheerleader. Football or revolution, it was all the same to Angel. This portrait, painted by Wolff, has become her primary entry in the SLA archive. The other is Hearst's memoir, Every Secret Thing, a carefully orchestrated work of self-defense written when Hearst was campaigning for a pardon. She dismisses Angela as giggly and silly. It's a striking departure from the language she used in her recorded eulogy to the fallen SLA members after the shootout, in which she declares that Angela taught her how to fight the enemy within through her constant struggle with bourgeois conditioning. Later, in a handwritten document known as the Tanya Interview, she claims Angela as a kindred spirit, a political novice like herself, someone she learned and grew alongside. Angela is a trivialized character in every book written about the SLA. In Jeffrey Toobin's American Heiress, the author refers to her as bubble-headed and ditzy. Most of our culture's popular narratives don't pass that part of the Bechdel test that requires a story to feature at least two well-rounded female characters. We struggle to find space in our imagination for the story with multiple women of depth and significance. This pathetic handful of distorted observations, sexist and dismissive and condescending, are the only extant accounts of the life of a woman who was instrumental in one of the most sensational political acts in American history. Who was she? How did the radiant college student in the turnaround photo become the dead revolutionary on television? And why did I feel so strongly about her? Why did I feel I needed to know? One night, I dreamed I was Angela, and I awoke saying aloud, how did I become a terrorist? I photocopied the turnaround photo, stuck it in a notebook, carried around with me in my big shoulder bag. It exerted a subtle but constant pressure. It was a relic of my past, an image of a place that I knew instinctively. I'd walked right there, right in her footsteps. I remembered that street sign and its inverted horseshoe-like arrow, although the sign had been taken down long ago. It drew me back to the Kroger parking lot with my mom. Why hadn't I kept fighting? And now I'm going to skip over a lot of biographical information about Angela. I have been researching her for many years. So there's a lot about her New Jersey Italian-American upbringing and her years in Bloomington, where she came to study theater and then education. James Kilgore, now a prison activist and researcher, helped hide the surviving SLA members after the shootout and participated indirectly in a bank robbery. One night, In late 1973, Kilgore was sitting in the legendary Berkeley pub, The Starry Plough, when Angela walked in waving a copy of Prairie Fire, a political statement published by the Weather Underground, a call for revolution. Never dissociate mass struggle from revolutionary violence, states the manifesto. To leave people unprepared to fight the state is to seriously mislead them about the inevitable nature of what lies ahead. Angela glowed with excitement as she circulated among friends that night, talking about what she'd read. In my 20s, my real K decade, I frequently ruminated on the final line of Archaic Torso of Apollo. You must change your life. I wanted this for myself. I wanted songs and books and manifestos and art to transform me from awkward, undereducated rock drummer into someone brilliant and aware, maybe even someone who made things happen. I joined the Workers' World Party, known for its support of groups like the Weather Underground, but I quickly lost faith in this tiny socialist faction, all men, one of whom kept hitting on me. I gradually abandoned activism as the Reagan years gave way to the Bush years, and nothing felt possible. Would the right piece of art have given me the clarity and passion I longed for? If I had read Prairie Fire back then, would I have done anything differently? There is credible evidence that an infinite number of universes exist, all as real as this one. Space-time is most likely flat, stretching out infinitely. If you gaze far enough ahead, you will find multiple versions of yourself, infinite versions. The idea of daughter universes is based on probabilities, suggesting that all possible outcomes occur in separate universes. Imagine coming to a point of decision. Should you take the bus or walk to work? This creates two daughter universes, one in which you take the bus, one in which you walk, one in which you turn around, one in which you don't. What lives are the multiple versions of Angela living in the network of daughter universes created by her roads not taken? In one, she's a movie star like Kevin Kline. In another, she's a beloved newscaster like Jane Pauley. In another, she's a New Hampshire mom and proud grandmother like her sister Elena, who's a character that I didn't mention earlier. She's a retired school teacher. She's an aging activist, an ex-con. Here, though, she's gone. What would she make of these times? What would she be doing? What should I be doing? In America, we want to believe that it is never too late, that there's always hope and time and another chance. It's a beautiful belief. It's why I love The $6 Million Man. But there is such a thing as too late. And it is that for Angela in this universe. And yet, piece by piece, I've been compelled to give her another chance to reveal herself to me, to give myself another chance, to tell her story as it deserves to be told. I don't know if I'm trying to bring her back to life or myself. How did I not become a terrorist, a soldier, someone with a vision of a better world, one I'd fight and die for? In other universes, I have died for democracy countless times. In her introduction to Chris Kraus's I Love Dick, Eileen Miles wonders if, quote, all those Bible stories that warn women not to turn around are just because she might see something, like her life. It's dangerous to turn around. Seeing your life can change it. I won't let that stop me from looking back, but increasingly these days, my gaze is drawn forward, scanning the distance for possible futures. In one daughter universe, Angela and I sit together in a cafe in Bloomington, creative, vibrant, helping each other stay alive. If I keep looking long and hard into space and time, if I can just look far enough, I'll see us there. I'll find us.